This is part 2 of the data entry portion of Module 4 of IDIS online training for CDBG entitlement grantees. In this video, we will walk through the process of reporting accomplishments for a public facility activity that meets the low mod area national objective. The best way to learn IDIS is to get hands-on practice. I want to encourage you to log into the UAT version of IDIS and enter the data as you follow the video. You can pause this video at any time using the pause button in the lower left-hand corner. You can switch back and forth between this video and IDIS by holding down the Alt key on your keyboard and then pressing the Tab key. If you're not already logged into the UAT version of IDIS, pause the video and do so now. You'll know if you're in the UAT version if you see UAT at the top of the screen. If you are unsure of how to access the UAT, there are directions on accessing this version of the system at the bottom of the IDIS login page and also in Module 1 of this course. This video is part 2 of the Public Facility module. If you want to do the data entry for this tutorial, you will need to first complete the Public Facility Activity Setup exercise. I am using the data found in Case Study 3 of the course material. You can use this data or simply make up the data as you go along. In the previous video, we set up a street improvements activity for the Brightwood neighborhood. We will now walk through the steps to report accomplishments for this activity. As always, we start at the home page of IDIS. To report accomplishments for our activity, we need to go to Projects Activities module in the navigation menu. If you want to follow along in your manual, we are in Chapter 7 for the first few screens, and then we will skip to Chapter 9 for the screens specific to the low mod area activities. Right now we are on page 7-1. The system by default shows the Search Activities page. This is used to find existing activities in the system. If you know the IDIS activity number, that's the fastest way to find an activity. If you don't know it, you can use any combination of the other search fields or simply click Search to get a list of all of your activities. Once the results come back, you will see your options in the right in the Action column. We should see Edit and View. The View function will let you look at the data, but you won't be able to change anything. We want to be able to input accomplishment data, so we will choose Edit. This is the same page we saw when we added the activity. We have two fields we need to update here: the activity status and the completion date. However, the system won't let us update these until we provide accomplishment data, so let's do that first. If we scroll down a bit to the table in the center of the screen, we will see some buttons for CDBG. The system does a nice job of separating out the data needed for setup and the data needed for accomplishments. At this point, we want to report accomplishments. If you are following along in the manual, we are now in Chapter 9. If you look at the first page in Chapter 9, you will see that the manual lists the screens that you need to complete based on the type of activity you have selected. For this activity, the manual tells us to go to page 9-2. The first thing we have to do on this page is to select the program year for which we are reporting. This is very important to keep in mind when reporting accomplishments for CDBG. It doesn't matter what grant year the activity is funded out of, and it doesn't matter what action plan the activity is listed in. If the work was done in 2010, we will use 2010 in this field. The rest of the data we enter on this page and the next will be counted as 2010 accomplishments. The next field is the Accomplishments Narrative field. HUD does not have specific guidance for this field. The best source of guidance for the narrative is your CPD representative, as it will be this person who will be reading the narrative as part of your CAPER report. In general, you can use the narrative to tell the story behind the numbers that are provided in the other fields. You can use the narrative to better describe the benefits and outcomes of the funded program. You can also use the narrative to provide details on stalled and canceled activities. Or if the activity has made progress, but you do not have any numbers to report, such as in this case. For our activity, we spent funds in the program year, but we cannot report any accomplishments since the street work is not yet finished. In this case, we can use our narrative to explain to HUD where we are in the overall process and when we hope to complete the activity. The next field lists the accomplishment type, in this case people, and the proposed number of units for the program year we selected. If it's blank now, the system will provide this number once we save this screen. Let's click Save and Continue. If you are following along in the book, we are in Chapter 9 on page 9-6. This second page collects performance measures. Performance measures provide more detail about who the beneficiaries are and what type of work was done. These will change based on the type of activity you undertake. You can see that the system carried forward the total number of persons who live in the service area from the previous page. On this screen, the system is asking you to categorize the benefit that they received as new access, improved access, or access to a facility that is no longer substandard. The book provides examples of when to use each category. Again, since the activity is not yet complete, there are no beneficiaries to report. HUD has stated in scenarios like this to wait until the activity is complete to report all beneficiaries. Click on the Save button. This will take us back to the first page. We are now finished updating the accomplishments for the activity for that specific program year. So in this case, all we did to report on this activity that's still underway without beneficiaries, all we needed to do was update the narrative. Since many public facilities and infrastructure projects take more than 1 year to complete, let's walk through the process of adding another program year to report accomplishments. Let's assume 1 year has gone by and we receive a report from Public Works that the Brightwood Street activity is now finished. Click on the Accomplishments button to go back to the Accomplishments screen. By default, the system will display the most recent year of accomplishments. We don't want to simply update the year displayed. If you did so, you may not get credit, since HUD only reviews and counts the most current year of accomplishment data. Instead, we will use the Add New Accomplishment Year button. By doing so, we get a new set of accomplishment screens to report on our 2011 accomplishments. I will quickly go through and enter the data for the people living in the service area to reflect that they received a benefit in 2011. We are now done updating the accomplishments for this activity. If the activity is complete, meaning that you do not need to draw any more funds and there are no additional accomplishments to be reported, you can update the activity status to complete in IDIS. Before we change the status to complete, the system wants us to check that all required fields have been completed. To do this, we will click on the Check CDBG button. You may have to scroll over to the right to see it. The system will refresh the page and give you a message at the top. If there are no errors, the system will display CDBG activity pathway is complete. Otherwise, the system will list any problems that need to be corrected before completing the activity. The final step is to change the activity status field to complete. Put in a completion date and click the Save button. Since we're in training, we will get a few errors here if the drawdown is still being processed or if the completion date is the same as the funding date. These are issues that occur during training because we are doing everything on the same day. Chances are you won't see these errors when you're entering your data throughout the program year.